Hi guys, this video is going to help you through the assignment, What is the World's Saddest Candy? It's going to be numbers 1 through 10. So notice that I'm going to go over about 5 examples. So I have 1, 2, 4, 7, and 10 that I'm going to go over with you. And I also have the answers to all of those 10 problems highlighted for you, so you can kind of eliminate the junk. If you want to pause the video and cross those out, you may. If it doesn't bother you, then go ahead and keep watching. Another thing that you're going to want to have in front of you is your notes about lesson 0.3. We need to remember some vocabulary on these notes. So we have the word variable, which is a quantity that can change or may take on different values. That's just fancy wording for it has a letter with it. So the variables you're going to see are like 3x. So remember we put a square around those variables to help us remember. And the other term is constant, which is a term with no variable. So it's just like the number 32, okay? So let's go ahead and get started with number 1. It's going to tell us 3x minus 7x minus 4. So let's go ahead and box and circle. So let's start with left to right. So we have a 3x, which is our variable. So we're going to go ahead and box that. Notice when I box 7x, I'm leaving the sign with it. So remember, the sign goes with the number behind it. And then we have the constant, which is -4, and we're going to keep that negative sign with it. So make sure you're boxing and circling just like I am. When we have just one constant, we know it's going to come down here at the end. So we can go ahead and add this -4 to the end. And we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. So we need to show what work is going on in our brain. And so we are subtracting a small number from a big number, so we know it's going to be a negative. And a -3 minus 7 would be a -4x. Okay, so we showed that work on our paper that was in our brain. And we're just going to take this -4x and add it with our constant. So our final answer is going to be -4x minus 4. If I went too fast or you weren't sure of the steps, make sure to pause, rewind, and your next problem we're going to work through is number 2. Okay, number 2 is going to ask for 6 plus 5x minus a -3x. So we have quite a few symbols going on, addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and double check our note sheet. It says back here if we are subtracting a negative number, it's the same thing as adding. So let's go ahead and rewrite that so that is true. So we have 6 plus 5x. And this is the same as addition, so we're going to put an addition sign, plus 3x. So we rewrote that so we can box now. So remember, our constant, we're going to circle. We're going to box around the addition sign in 5x and around the addition sign in 3x. So our constant can kind of just stay there. Remember, we kind of added on in the end. So we have a 5x plus 3x. Which we need to write out first, which would equal an 8x. So we have our first part of our expression. And we just have a 6, so we know it's going to be a plus 6. So we combine those x's and got our 8x plus 6. Go ahead and pause or rewind if you didn't quite get all my steps. If you did, we're going to move on to number 4. Okay, 4 is going to say 20x plus 7 plus a -8x. So if we're adding a negative number, we're going to have a rule to follow. So adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So let's go ahead and rewrite that before we start. So we have 20x plus 7, and adding the negative is the same as subtracting, so minus an 8x. Now we can go ahead and circle and box. So we have a variable which is going to be boxed. We have a constant which is going to be circled. We have another variable that's going to be boxed. So we can leave our constant alone. We know that one's going to come down at the end. So let's go ahead and write out our work that we're going to do in our brains here. So we have 20x minus 8x, which is going to equal a 12x, a positive 12x. So we wrote out that work. We know 12x is going to be here. And we need to bring down our constant, which is plus 7. So that's going to be our final answer for that. Our next number we're going to do, if my eraser will erase this, is number 7. So go ahead and look at number 7, see if you can start setting it up before I can, and I will then work through that example. My eraser is just taking pretty long. Okay, number 7 is going to read, let me switch over to red here so you can see. Negative 2x plus 14 minus 9x minus 1. Okay, so we have a bunch of numbers going on. We're going to be combining, oops, I messed up on that one. It's going to be a plus a negative 1. So it's really important that we're going to box and circle correctly on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and get my green marker ready. And let's go through. So we have a variable first, so we're going to keep that negative sign with that 2x. We have a constant. Oops, that was a variable. I need to square that one. We have a constant, which is going to be our circle. And we have a negative 9x, which is going to be our variable. We're going to keep that negative sign with that. And our last constant is, we have this really silly symbol going on. So double check your notes. So remember, adding a negative number is the same as subtracting. Okay, so let's rewrite that. So we have negative 2x plus 14 minus 9x minus 1. So let's go ahead. We got some of these done. So we're going to box negative 2x. We're going to circle positive 14. We're going to box negative 9. And now we can circle our negative 1 constant. So let's go ahead and just work with our variable numbers first. So we have a negative 2x minus 9x. Okay, so we know that we have a negative number minus 9x. So that's going to give us, we're subtracting from smaller to bigger. So that's going to give us a negative 11x. So we have our variable number here. We also need to show work for this. So I'm going to write mine to the side, but make sure yours is underneath here. So we have a 14 minus 1, which is going to give us positive 13. So we're going to take this and add it to the bottom. So we have negative 11x plus 13 as our final answer. Alright, let me see if I can erase this a little bit quicker. Our last number that I'm going to work through is number 10. So the last one on your page, the last assigned problem. So we're going to have 4 plus x plus a negative 10 minus 11x. So because I forgot to do this one on the last one, I need to make sure I'm doing it. So let's kind of look through and see what rules we need to change. I see this one right away. And that was in our last example. So we're going to use that rule. If we're adding a negative, it's the same as subtracting. So let's go ahead and rewrite that. So we have 4 plus x minus 10 minus 11x. So that's going to be our new problem. It's going to be a lot easier to box and circle. So working left from right, we have our constant, which we're going to circle, positive 4. And then we have a variable. Now if it helps you, you can always add a 1 here because sometimes it can get confusing. So that's going to be our variable, which is a positive 1x. Then we're going to go back to our constant, which is negative 10, and our last variable, which is negative 11x. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the math for 4 minus 10. So remember, we're going to get a negative number. Okay, so we have a negative 6. So we did our work for combining these like terms. So those are done. And we need to also do our 1x minus 11x, which is going to equal a negative 10x. Let me erase that so you can see that. Because remember, we're taking smaller and subtracting it from the bigger. So we have two negative numbers here, and remember our variable likes to go first. So we have negative 10x minus 6. Going to be our final answer. See if you can use those examples to help you through the rest of the worksheet. I know you can do it. If you run into issues though, let me know and I'd love to help you. Thank you.